Hello everyone, my name is Steve, and as many of my viewers will know, I have created a finance channel on here to help people learn about money. Now, being a Canadian, I wanted to try and do my part and help out in the current situation that we're facing by collecting and synthesizing all the information that's out there right now surrounding Canada's unemployment insurance plan, the new Canada Emergency Response Benefit, or the CERB for short, and some other helpful government benefits that might be of use to you right now. I know many of you are having a really hard time trying to find clear information on all the different nuances related to these programs right now. I know that when I was researching it was a little bit confusing, but I've tried to do my best to put it all together and make sense of it for you guys. But also keep in mind that this information is changing rapidly. There's new press releases every single day. Justin Trudeau is addressing the nation every single day, so the news and information surrounding this is going to change rapidly, so make sure to stay up to date on it. But before we start, I wanted to show you something that I thought was kind of funny and made me very proud to be Canadian. You know you're in Canada when you're using hockey sticks as a unit of measurement. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to any healthcare or other essential workers right now. I mean, you guys are just the real MVPs right now, and we all appreciate everything you're doing. So here's the plan for this video. I'm going to start with an important point about how applying for EI and the CERB is working right now. Then I'll give an overview of the CERB, including who's eligible, and I'll talk about what you can receive from it. Next, I'll run through some different scenarios. So maybe you're a student, or maybe you've had your hours or your pay cut, or maybe you're self-employed and you're not sure how these benefits apply to you. So I'll run through all these scenarios and talk about potential situations you might be in so that you can get an idea of what benefit is going to apply to you. And finally, I'll talk about some of the other benefits and programs that are being put in place right now, things like credit card relief, mortgage deferrals, student loan deferrals, and more. Okay, so the very first thing I want to point out to you guys is that according to an interview with Carla Qualtrough, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but she's the Minister for Employment, Workforce Development, and Disability Inclusion. And she gave an interview that stated that any pending EI applications, so if you've applied for EI right now and your application is currently pending, or if you were planning on applying to EI but you have not applied yet, your application is going to be automatically enrolled for the CERB instead of EI.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, we've had almost 1.5 million EI applications in the past 10 days alone. So all those applications are waiting to be processed. They're all going to be funneled into this new system. So if you've applied to EI and your application hasn't been processed, you're entitled to this benefit.
Okay, so some breaking news actually in this regard. I might be doing this a few times in this video because, like I said, things are changing very rapidly and I'm going to have to kind of update the video like this. But Justin Trudeau, as of April 1st, did confirm that any pending EI applications that were made after March 15th will automatically get enrolled into the CERB system, and this is also reflected on the Canada government website, which I'll provide a link to down below. So this means that if you have already applied for EI or you are going to apply for EI but your application has not been submitted or approved yet, you will automatically be enrolled for CERB. Now this actually looks like good news for a few different reasons. So the first reason is that because the CERB, the payment amount is going to be $2,000 per month. Now this is actually very close or about the same as the maximum payment you would receive from EI anyway. And that's because the CERB sounds like it's going to be a taxable benefit, but you won't pay taxes on it at the time that you get paid. You'll probably have to pay taxes on it when you file your taxes next year. EI, on the other hand, is taxed at source, so they take the money out before they pay you, which means that the maximum EI payment would likely be a little bit less than the CERB benefit. So essentially this works out to everybody who's going to CERB getting the maximum EI payment. The second benefit is this allows everybody's applications to get processed faster, and that's because the EI system is with Service Canada, and Service Canada isn't really set up to handle this unprecedented load of applications coming into it. Where on the other hand, the CERB is going to be handled by CRA. And if you have a My CRA account, then you know that there's millions of Canadians out there who get money direct deposited into their bank account from My CRA. So they're much more set up to handle this type of thing and to get money out the door faster to you in a more efficient manner. And the third benefit is that you won't need any supporting documentation to apply for the CERB. So you won't be needing a record of employment or anything like that you would need to apply for EI. So this again is going to make the application process simpler and faster. So overall, this simplifies and quickens the process for everyone. And you don't have to worry about receiving less or more money than you would with EI, because with the CERB, you're going to be receiving the max EI payment anyway, pretty much. And then once the CERB runs out, then you can apply for EI if you're still unable to work. Now, the thing that's a little bit unclear right now in terms of what's going to happen is if you're somebody who applied for EI, you got your application approved, and you're receiving EI payments. As it stands right now, it looks like you're going to continue to receive those EI payments, and you won't be eligible to receive the CERB on top of that. Now, this actually works out to be maybe a detriment to some people, because if you're not receiving the maximum EI payment, then that means that you would actually be receiving more money if you were eligible for the CERB instead. So by submitting your application really early, like maybe you were in the first wave of layoffs and you were early to apply to EI and you got approved, it seems like you may have accidentally kind of shot yourself in the foot doing that. And so I'm thinking that maybe we'll see some kind of like bridging program or a top up on EI payments to match the CERB, because I think it's pretty obvious that there's some kind of shortfall there in terms of people receiving EI payments versus the CERB for people who are in the exact same situation. So make sure to stay on top of the news. Like I said, the Prime Minister is giving addresses every single day, so we could see some more information on this or some changes soon. Okay, so some more news on this actually. This isn't an official government statement, it's actually some anecdotal cases, but it looks like a bunch of people who are currently receiving EI payments are seeing that their next scheduled EI payment is increased to that $500 per week level. So it looks like if you're receiving less than the CERB right now and you're on EI, it looks like a lot of people are seeing that their next payment is getting topped up to the level of the CERB. So pay attention to your number and see if it changes for you. So the Canada Emergency Response Benefit is the new streamlined benefit that the government has created to help people who are suffering from the effects of COVID-19 economically. It replaces the two benefits that were formerly announced by the government, which were the Emergency Care Benefit and the Emergency Support Benefit. So the CERB will provide Canadians with $2,000 per month beginning in April, but backdated to March 15th, and then for the next 4 months from that date. And like I said earlier, this $2,000 that you'll receive is taxable, but it's not taxable at source according to a press release that Justin Trudeau gave. So this means that you will receive that $2,000, which is nice, but you'll probably have to pay taxes on it at some point. They haven't stated when yet, but I would assume that you're going to have to include it in your income when you file your taxes for 2020. And as I understand it, the payment is going to be offered either as a direct deposit or a check. Now, direct deposit is obviously going to be the way faster way of receiving your money, so if you can go that route, definitely do that. Now, in terms of eligibility for the CERB, you have to have earned at least $5,000 in the past 12 months or 2019, whichever time range works better for you to get above that $5,000 per month. And you can't have earned any income in the past 14 days for reasons that are directly related to COVID-19. Now, later in this video, like I said, I'll be running through several scenarios and talking about how this can potentially apply to you. Now, to apply for this benefit, the government has stated that they're going to have an online portal that you can use, and it's planned to be up and running in early April. I believe the date of April 6th was given as the planned opening date for this, but that could change as we get closer to the date, so make sure to pay attention to the news for more information on that. Now, in terms of any supporting information or requirements you need to actually go and do the application for the CERB, The government has essentially stated that this is going to be based on an honor system. And what I mean by that is the government is not going to be asking you to provide any supporting documentation. They're not going to look at your history of employment. They're not going to look at your income. They're not really going to look at anything right now. And the reason they're not going to do that is because they want the process to be as fast and efficient as possible, because they realize that the nature of this event requires people getting the money they need as fast as possible. So they'll simply have you attest, or essentially swear, that you have met the eligibility criteria to receive the benefit. Now, in the interview that Carla gave, she basically said that at some point in the future, it will likely be the CRA who's going to take a look at everyone who's received the benefit, and then they're going to essentially look at your income during that period. If they see that you received a T4 from working and you also received the CERB or something like that, then they're going to know that you essentially lied and that you did have other sources of income, and what they'll probably do in that case is essentially make you owe the money back to them. So I think it goes without saying that let's not abuse this system. Let's be honest when we're using it, because the government is setting it up this way so that people who really need the money can get it easily. So let's not wreck it for them. Alright, so now let's run through some different scenarios that you might personally be in and talk about how EI or the CERB can apply to you. So for the first example, let's say that you've been laid off from work, you've lost your job. Now I've kind of laid out 4 different scenarios that can possibly apply to you in this case. And the first one is that you qualify for EI and are already receiving EI payments. In this case, it sounds like then that employment insurance is going to be your source of income. You won't be eligible for the CERB right now, and you will receive your EI payments until your EI payments run out. And then if you still are unable to work, then you can go ahead and apply for the CERB. But like I said, this may change, because I know that it kind of seems like some people are getting the short end of the stick in this regard, so keep an eye on the news. The second situation is you qualify for EI and have applied for EI, but you haven't been accepted yet. In this case, it sounds like your EI application is going to be automatically put into the CERB system, and that's the benefit that you're going to receive, and that's the payments that you will also receive. It's essentially assumed that if you are eligible for EI, then you're going to be eligible for the CERB, because the criteria for the CERB is lower than it is for EI. The third scenario is you qualify for EI, but you haven't submitted your application yet. In this case, you can still apply through the EI portal, but then it sounds like your application is still going to get moved to the CERB, or you can hold off and wait for the CERB portal to open itself, and then you can directly apply for that. But either way, it sounds like the CERB is going to be the benefit that you'll be receiving. And then the fourth scenario is if you're laid off and you do not qualify for EI. Then in this case, you can apply for the CERB, and you may be eligible for that based on if you meet the criteria. So the next scenario is if you're self-employed. If you haven't had income for the past 14 days for reasons directly related to COVID-19, then you can probably apply for the CERB, and you'll most likely be eligible for it. And that's because the CERB is designed to also apply to people who are self-employed, to people who take on contract work, or they do gigs, or that type of thing. Essentially, it just looks like you need to be above that $5,000 income threshold in the past year, and you haven't had income for 14 days. Now, if you've had a reduction in income, but you're still earning some level of income, then it sounds like you will not be eligible to receive the CERB. The CERB is only for people who have no source of income right now. So in this case, if you're self-employed, you'll have to decide whatever you're doing right now to earn your income and the expenses that you're incurring to earn that income, you'll have to decide if it's worth it for you to continue operating your business and incurring those expenses, or if you should shut down the business temporarily, have no income for that 14-day period, and then apply for CERB. So you'll have to run the numbers to see which choice might make the most sense for you. And I know that that can be a really hard choice to make, and I really feel for you on that one. Now let's talk about if you're a college or university student. Now you may be eligible for the CERB if you earned at least $5,000 in the past 12 months or in 2019 and have not received income for the past 14 days for reasons directly related to COVID-19. The unclear part about students is whether or not they will be included in this benefit, because a lot of students have met that income threshold, but they might not have been working right now. They might have been a full-time student, so they technically hadn't lost a job right now directly related to COVID-19, but a lot of people have summer jobs that they were expecting to go to that they're probably not going to get to go to now, so you're going to be losing that income source in the summer. Okay, so this part now actually appears to be confirmed. So I'm just reading here off the new website that the Government of Canada has put up, and they specifically have a part that states, for example, if you are a student who had a job last year and were planning on working this summer, you do not qualify for the benefit, unfortunately. So it really only seems to be applying to current workers right now. So I know that definitely sucks for a lot of you watching this who are students, so I'm not sure if they have any other plans in place, because I'm sure that they're aware that there's going to be a lot of, especially new people graduating who are trying to enter the workforce, or even just people who are planning on having a summer job, that this is going to be really tough for them. So I'm not sure if they're going to have other plans in place for that, but just make sure to keep following the news and hope for the best. Also, something to keep in mind if you're a student right now is that student loans have a moratorium on them right now, which basically means that for the next 6 months starting March 30th, your student loans are essentially frozen, which means that any payments will not be required for that period, and interest will not accrue for that period. So whatever your student loans are right now, they will still be that same amount in 6 months. They won't grow because of any interest charges hitting them. They'll essentially just be frozen for the next 6 months. So this is likely something you're going to want to take advantage of. But also make sure that you don't spend money you're going to put towards your student loans on things that you don't really need right now. If anything, just put this money into a high interest savings account, let it chill, so that way you have a little bit of a financial safety net if anything happens to you in the next little while. But then when it does come time for you to pay your student loans again, you have that money waiting for you. Okay, now let's talk about people who've had their salary or pay or wages reduced, or their hours reduced at their job. In this case, a significant reduction in any of those things can constitute the grounds for something called constructive dismissal. Constructive dismissal essentially just means that, in this case, the conditions of your employment have changed drastically beyond what you originally agreed to when you were hired. Now, if it can in fact be considered constructive dismissal, then it means that you're eligible to receive severance pay and any other benefits that you might be entitled to, like EI or the CERB. Now, I am by no means a lawyer, so please make sure to consult someone who is a legal professional to determine whether or not your case would actually be considered constructive dismissal, and then you can make a decision from there. And basically what you're going to have to consider here is if it's worth it for you to continue working at that reduced pay or hours, or if it would be better for you to take the constructive dismissal, get whatever severance you're entitled to, and then claim the CERB afterwards. And also make sure your employer is aware of the wage subsidy program going on right now. The government has stated that they'll pay up to 75% of employees' wages up to a certain amount for qualifying businesses, so make sure that they're aware of that. Now, how about if your employer can't pay you, but you also haven't been technically laid off? Again, make sure that your employer is aware of the wage subsidy program being offered by the government right now, because this may allow them to keep you on the payroll, but if not, then you will still be eligible for the CERB even though you haven't been laid off, because you aren't receiving any income right now. Now let's talk about if you're having trouble keeping up with rent. Many provinces have currently put a freeze on evictions, so that means that if you absolutely cannot pay your rent, your landlord can't evict you right now. Now with that being said, the best thing to do here right now in this situation is for landlords and tenants to work together. So make sure that you're communicating with one another to come up with a plan. Landlords and tenants are both facing hard times right now. If you're a tenant, keep in mind that mortgage deferrals do not apply to landlords. And if you're a landlord, then keep in mind that your tenant may have zero source of income right now, and it's completely not their fault. So it's really best to work together and communicate and try and find a solution. And if you are having a hard time keeping up with rent, make sure that you apply for the CERB and any other benefits that you might be entitled to. Now let's talk about if you're at home to care for your kids and you can't work right now. Well, first thing, you're going to want to make sure that you're receiving the child care benefit that you're entitled to. If you are, you're going to be receiving an additional payment in May. If you're not receiving this benefit and you do have children, then make sure that you have filed your tax return for 2018 or that the CRA knows that you have children. This should allow them to automatically apply the benefit for you as long as you're eligible. If you have direct deposit set up with the CRA, then this will automatically hit your bank account. And also in this case, if you're at home and you're not working, you're not receiving any income because you're caring for the kids, then you can apply for the CERB. Now let's talk about some of the other benefits and programs that are going on right now that may be able to help you out. Now, we've already talked about the student loan moratorium. So again, that's just essentially a 6-month freeze on student loans. It's great. Take advantage of it. The next one is the extended tax deadline. So this is good for people who will owe money to the government on their tax return because it's going to extend the tax deadline from April 30th to June 1st. So you have an extra month to come up with that money. However, if you're someone who's likely going to receive a refund from the government on your tax return, then you're going to want to make sure to do your tax return as soon as possible so that you can get that money. Now, I've actually created a video on how to use this really easy and free tax software to do your own taxes called Simple Tax, and you can check that out if you're interested. So right now, the big 6 banks in Canada are offering mortgage deferrals on a case-by-case basis with their customers. So this is a lifeline for Canadians who are essentially about to default on their mortgages. The thing to keep in mind here, though, is that this is not going to freeze interest. So your interest is going to continue to accrue on your mortgage during the period that you get a deferral for. So your mortgage is going to grow and the payments could get bigger. So it's kind of a situation where you're kicking the can further down the road and the can's getting a bit bigger and bigger. So really this should only be used as a last resort if you absolutely have to. Similarly, the big 6 banks are also offering credit card relief. Now, they've been kind of vague as to what this means, but they've stated that they'll be willing to work with customers on a case-by-case basis. So if you're somebody who's struggling with credit card debt right now, give your bank a call, see what they can potentially do for you. But again, just keep in mind how interest rates are going to come into play here. And most of the time, you're really only going to want to use these relief programs for the mortgage and the credit card if it's an absolute last resort, because most likely interest rates are still going to apply. But with that being said, maybe you could do something like get a reduction in your credit card interest rates. I don't really know what they're planning on doing. So I would say just give them a call and just see what they can offer you right now if you need some help. Now, as my older viewers will know, RRSPs must be converted to RRIFs when you turn 71. And RRIFs have a minimum amount that you have to withdraw each year from them. Because financial markets have taken a heavy hit recently, the government has reduced the minimum RRIF withdrawal by 25% to hopefully allow your investments a little bit of extra time to recover. I touched on this earlier, but for families who are currently receiving the Canada Child benefit, you will see a one-time payment increase in May that's approximately an additional $300 per child. So again, make sure that if you're eligible for that the CRA is aware of this. Another one-time special payment will be made in May, and that's an increase to the GST payment that will be getting sent out then. So the government has stated that the additional payment will be about $400 on average for individuals and around $600 for couples. So if you do receive that credit, that's a nice little boost for you. And so with all that being said, I hope that I've covered most of the information that you might be interested in, and I've kind of packaged it together in a way that makes sense and applies to you. At least that's what I've tried to do here with the kind of limited and confusing information that we're currently working with. Keep in mind that all this information will be current as of this video's posting, but the situation is likely to change as we're getting more and more news and changes every single day. So make sure to follow official government announcements for more information. I know I'm not alone, and I think being able to appreciate how our government and a lot of people have managed to come together to try and figure out how we can solve this and how we can support the people who need it right now, because I know there's a lot of governments around the world who are kind of being dysfunctional over this. Not going to point any fingers, but I think the good old Canucks are holding it together pretty well given the situation that we're in. And again, another huge shout out to healthcare and other essential workers that are out there, making sure that we stay safe, healthy, and fed in our homes. I mean, you guys are the real heroes right now. If you want to learn more about money from a Canadian, things like investing, TFSAs, RRSPs, all that good stuff, check out my other videos. You might be able to learn some really useful stuff while you're stuck at home right now. And with that, I'm Steve Antonioni, and this has been Cash College on Canada's economic response to COVID-19. Thank you all for watching. I hope that this helped, and I will see you all again soon.